The war no one saw coming. World War I, 1914 to 1918. Imagine Europe at the beginning of the 20th century. Old but complacent empires, cities with horse-drawn carriages, armies trained like marching bands. It was believed that war, if it came, would be quick, glorious, and brief. But one day in June 1914, in a small corner of Sarajevo, a young Gavrilo Princip shot and killed Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. It was just a spark, but it fell on a haystack of tangled alliances and latent feuds between nations. Within weeks, all of Europe was at war. Germany declared war on Russia and France, followed by Britain. Everywhere, young men were eager to go to war, thinking they would be home by Christmas. But they didn't. The war became an endless nightmare. Hundreds of kilometers of trenches, mud, bullets, poison gas. Soldiers lay in the cold dirt, not a single grave. A battle like the Somme or Verdun cost hundreds of thousands of lives, just to gain a few kilometers of wasteland. In those 4 years, there were no real victors, only crushed generations. By the end of the war in 1918, more than 16 million people had died. The great empires had disintegrated: Germany, Austria-Hungary, Ottoman, and Russia. The Treaty of Versailles in 1919 severely punished Germany, sowing deep discontent in the hearts of the German people. And like all seed sown, it began to sprout. When the world burns again, World War II, 1939 to 1945. After World War I, the world had not learned its lesson. The economy collapsed, trust in government was shattered, and populism and dictatorship rose. In defeated Germany, a veteran with a distinctive mustache and sharp tongue rose to power. Adolf Hitler, who promised to restore German glory, avenge Versailles, and bring jobs. The people obeyed because they were desperate. In 1939, Germany invaded Poland. This time, the world could not ignore it. Britain and France declared war. World War II began. Germany, now a fearsome war machine, used a lightning war blitzkrieg tactic to conquer almost all of Western Europe in just a few months. France fell. Britain stood strong, but alone. By 1941, Germany turned east, invading the Soviet Union. At the same time, across the Pacific, Japan, with its own imperial ambitions, attacked Pearl Harbor. The United States, which had been on the sidelines, was forced to join the war. The war truly became a world war. The smoke and fire spread from the jungles of Asia to the deserts of North Africa, from the Russian plains to the Pacific Islands. The Battle of Stalingrad became the turning point. The Soviet Union counterattacked fiercely. In Western Europe, the Allies landed in Normandy, D-Day, and began to push the Germans back. But the real crimes of this war were not just guns and bullets. That was when the whole world discovered the Holocaust. The genocide of 6 million Jews at the hands of the Nazis. Death camps like Auschwitz had no trenches, only crematoriums and cold stone walls. In 1945, Germany surrendered, but in Asia, Japan remained. The United States decided to use a new weapon, the atomic bomb. Hiroshima, then Nagasaki. 2 cities burned down in seconds. The war ended. 70 million people died. Cities were in ruins. The world was left with one question. Could it happen again? The war ended, but peace did not come. Instead, a cold atmosphere emerged, a war without guns but full of threats. 2 superpowers emerged, the United States and the Soviet Union. One represented capitalism and democracy. The other represented communism. Both possessed the atomic bomb. Neither wanted to fight directly, but neither wanted to lose. The Cold War began. It was not fought on a single battlefield, but everywhere. In Europe, the Berlin Wall divided a city and a world. In Asia, the Korean War and the Vietnam War broke out. In Africa and Latin America, uprisings, coups, and armed movements were all pawns in the confrontation between the two sides. Both sides engaged in an arms race, a space race. The Soviet Union launched Sputnik, then sent a man into space. The United States landed on the moon. The world has been on the brink of destruction many times. As in 1962, when the Cuban Missile Crisis occurred, One wrong decision, and the world could have been reduced to ashes. But surprisingly, all-out war never happened. The Cold War lasted more than 40 years, full of suspicion, espionage, propaganda, and small wars. In the end, it ended not with bombs, but with decline. The Soviet Union, exhausted by military spending, mismanagement, and failed reforms, began to crack. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. In 1991, the Soviet Union disintegrated. The Cold War ended. The United States became the sole superpower. Conclusion: what has the world learned from 3 wars? From the trenches of France, to Nazi prisons, to nuclear weapons bunkers across the Pacific, humanity has lived through a tumultuous century. The old world, of empires, of fascism, of nuclear confrontation, has collapsed. Today, we live in a different era. But the ghosts of wars still linger, in the lessons of history, in the relics that remain, and in the never-ending vigilance. History does not repeat itself, but it echoes. And this story of the 3 greatest wars in human history is a reminder: peace can never be taken for granted. For after the Cold War, new order and new uncertainties, 1991, 2020s. The world after 1991 entered a new era, an era of globalization, technological revolution, and non-traditional conflicts. The United Nations, the European Union, the World Trade Organization, WTO, were born to coordinate global cooperation. The market economy spread to Eastern Europe, China, Southeast Asia. Digital technology, the internet, artificial intelligence. Smartphones changed the way people live, learn, and work. However, peace does not last forever. Global terrorism is on the rise. The peak was September 11, 2001, when Al-Qaeda attacked the United States. The U.S. invaded Afghanistan 2001 and Iraq 2003, opening the war on terror. Populism, nationalism, and geopolitical tensions return. Russia reasserts its power, invading Crimea in 2014, war in Ukraine in 2022. China's strong economic rise, challenging the global position of the United States. The world entered the 21st century with many unprecedented advances, but also with new risks. Climate change, migration crisis, pandemic, new ideological struggles, democracy, dictatorship, freedom, control. Conclusion: from ruins to hope. The 3 great wars, World War I, World War II, and the Cold War, were not just conflict between nations. They were milestones, the most expensive lessons about the price of arrogance, hatred, and lack of dialogue. The world today is still full of divisions. But if we look back at history, we understand peace is a choice. Not because it is easy, but because there is no more humane choice. We are living in the next moment of history. And perhaps what matters is not how much we know about the past, but what we learn from it.